I am a product of the 1960s multicultural movement. Even though I'm an atheist, I rejected organized religion, I have enormous respect for all of the world religions. That's a huge element of spiritual quest in the 1960s that's been forgotten. Okay? It wasn't just about politics. The politics were very important. The civil rights movement, the protests against the Vietnamese War, the reawakening of feminism, the gay liberation movement, all these things were very important. Okay? But there was this other thing, okay? This movement outward toward other cultures, this embrace of these tremendous poetic forms. The great world religions, okay, they're poetry, they contain art and iconography, they're a collection of tremendous wisdom about human life. If you're going to approach young people, from the position of atheism or secular humanism, you have to give them something else. You cannot just trash religion, okay, and also trash art. Okay, what my atheism says, okay, I reject, I do not believe in a personal God, right? However, I see in the enormous force of nature, okay, my attitude toward nature is very similar to that of Native Americans. In fact, that's my next project. My next project is about Native American art and archaeology, precisely about this. I think that the religious view of the elemental forces of nature in the Native American code, okay, is magnificent. It has many parallels to that of Wordsworth or Ralph Waldo Emerson and so on. All right, I see nature, okay, and I see art, okay, the incredible beauty and power of art. And my attitude toward art is reverential, okay, the same thing, okay? These urban pseudo-sophisticates, okay, are incapable of reverence, okay, all right? And so what kind of thin gruel, okay, is being given to our young people? Nothing, absolutely nothing, okay? And then we wonder why the entire professional class in Manhattan and Los Angeles, they're on meds, they're all doping themselves on tranquilizers, okay, antidepressants, okay? Why? Because there's nothing. Their worldview is nihilistic, okay, absolutely nihilistic. Conventional thinking, right? They've rejected religion, but instead they've made a religion out of the Democratic Party. Okay, I'm a registered Democrat. Okay, but democratic politics of a particular conventional kind. Okay, that is the substitute. Okay, for the atheistic professional class now. Okay, all right, and it's what I wrote years ago about poststructuralism. That poststructuralism was a new religion, for these faithless, academics who and I said, this was 20 years ago, I said better Jehovah than Foucault. Okay? The true core curriculum for the world should be comparative religion. Okay, that is that every young person in the world should know the sacred texts, okay, and belief system of everyone else in the world, and that's the only way we're ever going to get any kind of political understanding. Okay, so everybody knows the Bible, everyone knows the Quran, and knows what knows what these things are based on. My generation was inherited the interest in Zen Buddhism of the beatniks. Okay, the beats. You had Gary Snyder, prominent, very important beat poet, who went off to actually become a Buddhist monk in Japan. And then my generation made the movement toward Hinduism, toward India. That's why there were so many sort of sitar motifs, in 1960s rock music. Ravi Shankar was playing at Monterey. The Beatles went off chasing their false guru, in India, the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And so and that particular element in the 60s quest, okay, has been forgotten because of that disillusion with gurus, but also, unfortunately, my peers of my generation who were most interested in these themes were also the ones who were taking too many psychedelics. Okay, so LSD, okay, on the one hand, opened doors, okay, for people to walk through, but then the door kind of closed behind them. I don't know. So the spiritual seekers, okay, who are most adventurous of my generation, then through their experiment with all of these things, as well as natural, peyote and mescaline and so on, in effect, they pickled their brains so that they never were able to write the books that they should have. And I regret this not only because of the cultural loss, but because that's why my work looks so odd. Okay, I look odd. They say no one can categorize me. They look, well, what is she? What side does she belong on? It's because there's all these missing books. Okay, and the missing people. Okay. So I really mourn them. All right. Now, on the one hand, okay, I'm assailing, the liberal side of the cultural landscape in the United States. Okay, for its snide cynicism about religion and its and this kind of snarky tone that's now everywhere, a sense of superiority. On the one hand, claiming to speak for the working class, but feeling so superior to the actual belief systems of the working class. I mean, I just despise that's default snarky tone. On the other hand, I'm also criticizing conservatives and saying that conservatives cannot go on claiming to uphold the Western tradition and calling for a return to traditional educational, content and so on, at the same time as ignoring art, the history of art. But scholars and intellectuals have not made it easy, okay, for mainstream Americans to learn about the arts. I say in the introduction to Glittering Images that people who live in cities with major museums suffer from a tragic complacency about the condition of the arts. All right, I have been a great listener to talk radio for the last 20 years. I love talk radio as a populist medium, and I regret the fact that so few liberals have succeeded as hosts in that medium. The home of liberal thought is actually at NPR. There's a certain kind of a style of a vocal style, okay, and a tone on NPR that I think, okay, has become very genteel. Okay, it's the same thing as on the BBC. The BBC is extremely liberal as well. The arts find a home on both NPR and BBC. But that tone. I mean, like if I have to do an NPR interview, I have to like really, focus. Okay. And I have to get very mellow. It's almost like a kind of seance of gentility. And so, you see, whereas my natural mode is AM radio, okay? And AM radio, all right, is this barking, abrasive, colloquial style. It descends from the DJs of the 1950s, the ones who were like these crazy weirdo guys who like, listen to this platter, and they would spin the song. And that is the secret, okay, of AM radio. It's not just that it's conservative versus liberal that we're talking about, okay? But honestly, the AM radio format with its many callers and people who call in from all over, and I would include, by the way, also sports radio, which I also listen to a lot, okay? AM radio has provided a forum, okay, for voices who are not heard anywhere else in the culture. I mean, like on Philadelphia Sports Radio, I mean, people will call in, from construction projects to talk about the problems with the Eagles game yesterday and this very learned analysis of everything that's wrong with the front line, and it goes on and on and on and on. People are calling from their trucks. I mean, it's absolutely a fantastic medium, okay? All right, so at any rate, over the last 20 years on talk radio, I have been hearing this disrespect for art and for artists. Okay, that was really alarming me as a career teacher, in art schools. And of course, I know the reason for that. It's because of that stupid series of controversies over sacrilege and art that was inaugurated in the 80s with Andre Serrano's "Piss Christ," which, for those of you who don't know, okay, this is a third or fourth rate work, okay, which is it's a large format photograph of a plastic crucifix submerged in a glass beaker of the artist's urine. Now, Andre Serrano is such a weenie, okay, that he never would even admit that he had any kind of transgressive or subversive intention. Instead, he backtracked. No, what I was really talking about was the cheapening of Christ's image. Oh, that's why you called it "Piss Christ." Right, okay. Now, it's one thing if we're talking about a masterpiece, okay? I mean, my favorite work of sacrilegious art is by Salvador Dali. I name it in the introduction to the book, but I cannot even profane this august group, okay, by telling you what it is. It's a parody of the Annunciation, okay? It is hilariously X-rated. In fact, it was in the Playboy Mansion collection until very recently. I don't know where it is now. But that is my favorite work of sacrilegious art. This is a very wonderful work. It is learned. It is cheeky. It's audacious. For that, the art world, okay, should be having a controversy, not over piss Christ. So, and there was a whole series of them. Now, as far as I'm concerned, okay, the last authentically avant-garde work, okay, or body of work, okay, was done by Robert Mapplethorpe in the late 1970s. His photographs of the gay sadomasochistic underground in New York, and that to me was the end of the avant-garde, right? All right. What I'm saying to the art world is that the avant-garde was essentially killed by my hero, Andy Warhol, from the moment he took in Campbell's soup cans, okay, in the iconography of capitalism, okay, into his work. That was really the end of the very noble 200-year oppositional tradition of the avant-garde that began in the late 18th century, okay, with Romanticism, okay. And what I'm saying is that for the last 30 years, post Mapplethorpe, okay, the subversive or transgressive gesture is completely hollow and has become utterly corrupt. Because once, if you made an avant-garde gesture, there was a price to be paid for it. Okay, the Impressionist painters starved, okay? They had no way of showing their art. There were no art galleries back then, okay? If they did not toe the line and produce the kind of art that the salon jury would show in their either yearly or sometimes every 2 years, massive shows, these artists have no way of reaching potential clients, potential patrons, right? So the Impressionists, and other such avant-garde artists, going all the way down to the abstract expressionists of the 1950s, who had terrible depression and suicides and so on, okay? A price was paid. What price has been paid, okay, in this era of piss Christ, okay, since the 80s? What is the price that's paid? Right? You do something that you take something from Catholic iconography, always Catholic, right? Never Jewish, never Muslim, okay, always Catholic, right? Take something Catholic and do something scandalous to it, and you will be written up, okay, and celebrated in the New York Times, okay, all right? You will get a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts, okay? You will be hired by the University of Chicago, okay, or Berkeley, or UCLA, okay? This is absolutely corrupt. How dare these people, how dare these worms, talentless worms, okay, borrow from the great avant-garde tradition of people who really died, okay, for their art. It's an outrage. We cannot tolerate this anymore, okay? Now, the idea that art, by definition, speaks truth to power. Oh, it interrogates, okay, contemporary assumptions. Oh, really? Okay, this is utterly stale. Only a fraction of art in the whole history of art, whole history of world art, has been oppositional. Only a fraction, okay? And it was a great run. It was a great run from the late 18th century down to Andy Warhol, okay? All right, with a little bit of a blip into Mapplethorpe, okay? And that's it. The only thing that ever survives from a culture is its arts. Political power is transient. Political power is nothing, okay? It will vanish. The most powerful man of the world, okay, all right, is nobody, okay? The only way we remember any of the powerful men of the world is the way they were captured by artists, often anonymous artists in ancient Egypt and Rome, okay? So the bequest of any civilization